So welcome everybody to this latest video on 162 Math, and in this video we'll be going over some GCSE Maths Higher Revision Big Mark questions part 2. We'll be focusing on Pythagoras, volume of prism, bounds, probability, equation of a straight line, and compound area and trigonometry with the cosine and sine rule. Now as always there'll be a copy of the questions in the link for you to download and have an attempt at before watching this video as we go through the answers. Now, before continuing watching this video, I strongly recommend that you have an attempt at the questions we're about to go through beforehand, just so that you can see how much knowledge you have of each of these particular topics, but also to try and gauge an understanding of what your brain would naturally do if you were confronted with these questions, and also how you would approach the questions as well. Now, I'll also include the mark scheme, as with many of these big mark questions, there are many ways in which you can approach a particular question and still come out with the same answer. So even though your method might be different from the one I'm about to go through now, you still may get marks as long as you've got the same answer. Now in terms of question 1, you can see on the screen there the types of questions and the topic it's related to. You do tend to find that a lot of these big mark questions do combine a lot of different topics, so just be aware that sometimes when you look at a diagram or you read a question firsthand, you may just automatically think of one particular topic, but there may be some hidden topics that you may need to use to get your answer. So looking at question 1 now, if you've not printed out a copy of this question, I strongly recommend you pause the video and have an attempt at this particular question before we go through it. So looking at this question, it says that a right angle triangle ABC is the cross section of a prism, and we've got the measurements here, and the question is asking us to work out the volume of the prism. Now to work out the volume of any prism, it's the area of the cross section, so in this case it's going to be the triangle multiplied by the length. Now here I can work out the area of the triangle because I know the base and the height, so this is going to be 5 times 12 divided by 2, which equals 30. So that's going to be 30 centimeters squared. So the next thing I then need to do is find the length, which in this case is CF. Now at the moment I do not know what CF is, so that's what I'm going to have to find. I also, in order to find CF, well, if I can find CM is the midpoint of CF, so that's what I need to do. So the length here is CF. Now to find that length there, I'm thinking of a right angle triangle, so if I was to just draw a line here, then in order to find the length of that green line, in order to find the orange line, I need to know the length of that green line. Now I can't use the 12 to work that out, but what I can do is use the 5 and the 16 to work out the length of BM. So here, if I just do a little sketch of a triangle and just label that up, so we've got A, B and M. This is 5 and this length here is 6, and this green length is what I need to find, so I'm just going to call that X. So using Pythagoras, and if I call that C, there's my right angle, this A and that B, then what I end up with is 5 squared plus x squared equals 16 squared. So x squared equals 16 squared minus 5 squared. So x squared equals 256 minus 25. So x squared equals, and it's going to be 231. So therefore x equals root 231. So that little green length there is 231. Then to work out the next triangle, so if I take this triangle out here and I just draw that as a triangle one, so this is C, so that's CM, and that point there is going to be B. I now know that this length here is root 231, and the base of that triangle BC is 12, and so if I just call the side MCY, I use Pythagoras again. So here I know that y squared plus 12 squared equals root 231 squared. So y squared equals root 231 squared minus 12 squared. Now roots and the square cancel each other out, so y squared equals 231 minus 144. So y equals, or y squared equals 87. So y equals root 87. So what I've worked out is that this length here of c to m, and let's just do that in orange, equals root 87. Now we've said that the m is the midpoint, so that means that this length here is also going to be root 87, giving me a total length of CF being 2 lots of root 87. Now again, many of you this may be a calculator question in which you may have a decimal version of it. I'm going to keep my answer insert just in case this question is non-calculator. So from this, what I can then do is going back to this here, that the volume equals, and it's going to be 5 times 12 over 2 multiplied by 2 lots of 2 lots of 87. So this then becomes 30 times 2 root 87. So in exact form, it's going to be 60 root 87 centimeter cubed. But if this was on a calculator, so this is an exact form or insert form, or I could write the answer as 559.6427, and rounded up is 559.6 centimeter cubed, and that's to 1 decimal place. Moving on to question 2, it says, and again, if you want to have if you've not had a chance to print off this question, by all means pause the video at this point and have attempted it, and then unpause for me, listen to me go through it. So here it says, Edith's van can safely carry a maximum load of 920 kilograms. She wants to use her van to carry 30 sacks of potatoes, each of a mass of 25 kilograms to the nearest kilogram, and 20 sacks of carrots, each of a mass of 7.5 kilograms to 1 decimal place. Can she definitely use her van safely in one journey? Now the worst case scenario is having the heaviest bags. Now if I look at the rounding of each of these, so 25 to the nearest kilogram is going to be 25 plus or minus half of what this is, so it's going to be 0.5. So the upper lower bound is going to be 24.5 and 25.5. And for the carrots, that's going to be to the nearest 1 decimal place, so that's going to be 7.5 plus or minus half of 1 decimal place, which is 0.05. So that's going to be 7.45 and 7.55. So if I take the heaviest scenario, so that's using 25.5 and 7.5, so the heaviest load is going to be 30 sacks of potatoes weighing the maximum, which is going to be 25.5, plus 20 sacks of 7.55. And if I type that all into my calculator, I get an answer of 765 plus 151, which comes up to 916. So that's the maximum load. So this here is the maximum possible load. So is this less than 920? Yes. So as 916 is less than 920, she can safely go on her journey. So something along those lines would be absolutely fine, but you definitely want to say yes or no to the original question, because that's what the question is. It's really important that you do answer what they are asking. Moving on to question 3, it says, and again, if you want to have a go at this question, please pause the video at this point now and have an attempt to then unpause so I can carry on with the question. So here it says, these 20 discs are in a bag. 2 of the discs are taken at random. Work out the probability that the first disc is smaller than the second disc. So for this, let's have a look at the possible situation. So here we've got the first disc, and we've got the second disk. Now we want the first one to be smaller, so let's have a look at all the possible situations we can have. So the first one being 11, second one being 22, first one being 11 and then 33, 11, 44. Then we've got 22, so the only two that are bigger than that is going to be 33 and 44. Then if we pick 33, then the only possible outcome we can have is going to be 44. So what we need to do is we now need to work out the probability of each of these scenarios. Now remember that you're picking one out and then picking another one out, so this is going to be without replacement. So here the probability of picking 11 and then 22, the probability of picking 11 is going to be 4 out of 20, and then the probability of then having 22, well, how many 22s are there? There's 6, but there's going to be 19 left in the bag. And from 11, so here we've got 4 over 20 times, and it's going to be 7 over 19. And 11 and 44, well, that's going to be 4 over 20 times 11. It's going to be 3 over 19. Then for the next two, 22, well, there's 6 of those, so that's going to be 6 over 20 multiplied by 33, which is 7 over 19. And 22, which is 6 over 20 multiplied by 3 over 19, because there's only 3 44s. Then finally, for the next one, probability of picking 33 first is going to be 7 over 20. And then the probability of the next one being 44 is going to be 3 over 19. Now 20 times 19 is 380. So then working out the probability of each of these, 6 times 4 is 24, so that'll be 24 over 380. This will be 4 times 7, which is 28 over 380. 4 times 3, so that's 12 over 380. 7 times 6 is 42 over 380. 6 times 3, 18 over 380. And 7 times 3, which is 21 over 380. And then all I then need to do is add up these fractions together. Now you might be thinking that might be a tough task, but as the denominator for all of these are the same, that my final answer is going to be over 380, and all I then need to do is just simply add those numerators together. So if I add all of those up, I get an answer of 145. Does that simplify? Yes, because I can divide both numbers by 5, and that gives me an answer of 29 over 76. So it doesn't say simplify your answer, so any of those two would be absolutely fine as your final answer. Moving on to question 4. Again, if you've not had a chance to copy this, print out this question, then pause the video and have a go at it. So with question 4, it says line A has the equation of y equals 4x minus 1. Line B is perpendicular to A and passes through the point 85. Work out the coordinates on the of the point where line B intersects the x-axis. So again, this is the question that we need to answer. Now in order to answer that question, I need to work out the equation of line B. So looking at this, from looking at line A, I can see that the gradient is 4. So therefore then the gradient of line B is going to equal the negative reciprocal of A, so it's going to be minus 1 over 4. Now I know it goes through this point, in which we can then use two possible methods. So we can either use y minus y1 equals mx minus x1, or we can use y equals mx plus c. It doesn't really matter because they both should give you the same answer. So using this method here, I can see that m is minus 1 over 4, and the coordinate I'm going to use is 8, 5. So this is x1, that's y1. Substituting those numbers in, I get y minus 5 equals 1 over 4 x minus 8. So y minus 5 equals 1 over 4 x plus, and then a quarter times 8 is 2, so it's plus 2. Then take the 5 over, so y equals minus a quarter x, add the 5 plus 7. If I use y equals mx plus c, we should get the same. So here m equals minus a quarter, x equals 8 and y equals 5. So I've got 5 equals a quarter times 8 plus c, and which I get 5 equals 2 plus c, so c equals 7, so y equals minus a quarter x plus 7. As you can see, that either method gives me the equation of the line. Now I've not answered the question because the question then says write down the coordinates of where it intersects the x-axis. So here, if we're looking for the x-axis intercept, that's when y equals 0. So here I've got y equals minus a quarter x plus 7. Y equals, plus 7. So then from this, if I take the 7 over, let me just not use green because it's not really coming out great. So here, if I take the quarter over to the other side, I end up with this, and then take the 4 over, so x equals 28. So then the coordinate is going to be 28, 0. And there is my final answer for that one. Then moving on to question 5, it says that a shape is made by joining triangle ABC to the semicircle with diameter AC. Work out the area of the shape. So for this, we've got to work out this compound shape. So if I just label the shapes as A and B. So here we've got a triangle and a semicircle. Now to work out the area of the triangle, I either need to know the base and the height, or I need to know an angle and the two adjacent sides, in which in this case I do. So to work out the area of A, I'm going to be using a half AB sine C. So looking at substituting those numbers in, so here I've got A, I've got B, and this angle here is C. So here I've got a half times 8 times 10 times sine of 114, and if I type that all into my calculator, I get an answer of 36.54181,831. So I'm just going to shelve that for now, and just put a little bubble around that. Now the next thing I need to do is work out the area of B. Now B is a semicircle, so what I need to do is I need to work out the length of AC, because I need to know what the radius of that circle is, because I need that the area of the semicircle is pi times radius squared over 2, where D equals AC, so R equals AC over 2. So to find AC, what I then need to do is I need to look at this triangle as a whole. So if I just do a little sketch of what that triangle looks like, I've got 8, I've got 10, I've got X, and I've got 114. So to work out X, I need to use the cosine rule. So for this, I've got A, that's going to be capital A, that's going to be B, that's going to be C. So here I've got X squared equals 8 squared times 10 squared, take away 2 times 8 times 10 times cos of 114. Now if I type that all into my calculator, I get an x squared value of 229.0778629. Square root that, so x equals 15.13531839. So what I've then got is that this distance here, I'll just get rid of that x, A to C is 15.135 blah blah blah. So to work out the area of B, it's going to be using this formula here. So here I've got pi times 15.135 divided by 2, because it's the radius that I'm needing, and that's the diameter squared, and I divide that all by 2, then what I end up with is an answer of 89.9586625. So then to work out the area, the total area, Let's use a different colour. So the total area is going to be 36.5418. You don't need to use all the decimal points. Put them after the decimal point, just a few. 89586, and I should come up with an answer of 126.521 decimal place. Now, answers they would accept to give you full marks, or basically any answer between 125.99 to 126.572. So as long as your answer falls within this region here, you are going to get full marks, because it all depends on the accuracy of your rounding in your working out.